Hi everyone, good afternoon. I hope you all
Started.
Hi everyone, we're getting organized here. I have to say hello to you all again. Technology. Okay. Okay everyone, let's start that again. Hi, how are you all? How are you managing with all this exciting new way that we're living? Well, today we're going to really try and get into the and how to manage the uncertainty around this situation. So welcome to my live webinar. I'm so pleased you could join me. I am really think this is an important thing that we do is just help each other through this situation. And I'm just very pleased that I can use my skills of literally 38 years of mind-brain research to help us to navigate this. I tell you, this mind stuff that I've been studying for these years is helping me so much, and my family are immersed in it, and I want to help you as much as I can as well. So just a couple of little points. If you want to ask me a question, you'll see at the bottom of the screen, there's a little section that says Q&A, so you can type in a question there. And also on the side, there's a chat. And I will answer it. I'm going to just talk a little bit first and explain a bit about uncertainty and give you some tips. And then for about the last 10-15 minutes, I'll then dive into your questions. And I'm going to try and answer as many as I can, but I know there's already lots coming through, and I'll do my best to answer them all. So if your question hasn't been answered, then just resend it again once we get going, as I get talking, and then I'll try and get to as many as I can. So welcome to all of you, those that have just joined and that are still joining. There's a few thousand of you, so I'm just like so honored that you're taking this time out this afternoon to spend time with me, and I really know that we're going to learn a lot together. Just, you know, we learn so much from each other. Okay, so my main thing that I'm going to talk about today is uncertainty. What is this uncertainty? Why does it make us feel so uncomfortable? And I just want to start by telling you just a little bit about what happened to me the other day. You know, I kind of have been managing this isolation. In fact, I embraced it at first because I spend 70% of the month in a plane and in hotels, and I go home for holidays, literally. And so not having to get in a plane as much has been such a pleasure, to actually not have to constantly pack a case and get in a plane and not, I mean, it's not terrible, I don't hate it, but it has been absolutely wonderful to be at home. I'm also finishing my 18th book. We've got an echo here. We're just trying to sort out some technology, so please forgive us. Okay, sort it out. Okay, so I'm finishing my 18th book at the moment, and it's given me a chance to work on the book in a more ordered fashion, because normally I'm like riding on planes and researching at the baggage claim and in hotels. So it's been a pleasure. That from that side, it's been a pleasure for me. So I really found this amazing. But then, you know, the other morning I woke up and I felt so, just suddenly I woke up with, wow, we have been in quarantine. Well, we've been in isolation for nearly 3 weeks, and we don't know how much longer. And I speak to a lot of epidemiologists, and I've got a lot of doctor friends, and I follow the scientific community and the science behind this thing in depth. And I realized, you know, this is not going to be over quickly. We don't know anything. Yeah, we know some stuff, but there's a lot of uncertainty around the time. And it didn't worry me, but that morning, it was a few days ago, it really worried me. So how long is this going to go on? It's just so uncertain. There's just a complete, you know, it's not just a few weeks, it's already 3, and we don't know how much longer. We also don't know how many months. We don't know when we're going to get this thing under control, even though the scientists are doing amazing things, working together to try and solve this problem and find retrovirals and all kinds of stuff. I just felt the sense of uncertainty. It hit me, and I was so uncomfortable. I felt really anxious. I even felt a little bit depressed, and I thought, gosh, we've had to change the whole nature of how we do our business. You know, there's also the concern about that. I know a lot of you out there are also experiencing the concern of like financial and the future, and what does it hold, and what is it going to look like? You know, there's just so much uncertainty. Now, uncertainty is not something new to any of us. We all know, I'm preaching to the choir here. We don't I don't have to tell you that uncertainty is normal and it's normal to feel anxious around uncertainty, because I know you know that. What I want to start by telling you is the reaction that I had in my own body and my mind, that I want to explain to you what that feels like and help you embrace that, because how I coped with that moment was, instead of getting completely depressed or going into a tailspin in the wrong direction, I actually applied some principles and I want to share them with you. So first of all, I reminded myself of a very scientific fact, and also quite a logical fact, that when you actually face what you are feeling and embrace it by speaking about it, instead of just pushing it down, say how you feel, speak it out loud. Try and explain it to yourself. When you do that embracing, when you acknowledge it, it actually already makes it not so bad. And especially if you can share it with someone, like I immediately called my faithful husband, Mac. I mean, he's so great at just listening to me. And I called him over and I just said, I just feel whatever. And I told him my feelings and I just shared that. And I've shared it, by getting it out, I already got a level of control over the uncertainty. The temptation was to suppress it. The temptation was to, the little voices in my head were saying things like, oh, you know, this is all part of a grand scheme. How many times have you said that? This is God's plan. You know, this is not a grand scheme thing. This is part of life. These things happen. We don't understand most of stuff that happens. But we've got to be careful of just trying to avoid what we're going through by trying to make ourselves feel comfortable. I tried to make myself feel comfortable. I felt uncomfortable. I could feel my body going into toxic stress. Now, if any of you have heard me teach on stress before, and toxic stress is bad for you. Good stress is good for you. Toxic stress is when the physiological reactions in your body and your brain, through the HPA axis between the brain and the body and all the different systems, when that goes wrong, you will feel physically horrible. You'll feel the adrenaline pumping. You might feel some pain in your heart. You might feel headachy. You might feel queasy. There's a multitude of physical reactions that you will get. We as humans like balance. We like homeostasis. We like it in our body. We like it in our brain. And we like it in our mind, mentally. We like balance in our life. Our body works on principles of balance. Our brain works on principle of balance. So one of the big things about uncertainty is that the balance is thrown off. We feel that very quickly in our physical, and we feel it almost exactly the same time, but there is a bit of a time lag in our mental. So we feel this like maybe depression or anxiety or panic or whatever mentally. Physically in our body, we're feeling this heart pounding, adrenaline pumping, tensing of muscles, the shots of like panic moving. You physically, you feel like tension. Now, it's so important. As I've experienced that, I felt the discomfort. I wanted to suppress the thought. I wanted to quickly get busy with my work, which is a great distraction for me. I love my work, so it was very easy for me to distract myself by. And I thought, I'm not going to do that because I need to deal with this thing. If I push it down, it's going to get worse. If you suppress it, I do research in the brain. I can tell you now, when you suppress something, you cause brain damage. You actually will affect how your brain functions. And if you keep doing that, it's there. This thing is there. It's reality. It's a thought. I've got this thought in my brain. I don't want that causing brain damage. So I'd rather get it out and deal with it. So I didn't allow myself just to suppress it. I embraced it. I spoke about it. I didn't just give myself some kind of an excuse to hide it. And I started speaking about it to my husband. And I actually made some notes. Please excuse me. I'm going to look at my notes here. I basically said that it sucks. It's awful. It's not, it's random. I can't explain this. It's changed everything. So instead of just trying to think it, oh, this is part of some grand scheme and just ignore it, I actually acknowledged that it sucked. Then I started processing it. I started moving forward. And I said, I understand this is means I have to make a lot of changes. This means, and these changes are X, Y, and Z. And I started just listing off the changes for myself. And I said, it makes no sense because, and in other words, I started doing some explaining. I started processing. I didn't just say, I moved from saying how I felt to then looking at the implications, trying to understand it. It wasn't very long that I spent on it. And then I also said, one of the things I wrote was that I understand that I don't understand. it made me feel so good. I suddenly realized, okay, well, I'm probably, all of us feel the same. Honestly, it's we collectively facing this common enemy. We're all feeling the same. So that helped. So that was processing. I moved it forward. Then I reconceptualized it. I looked at it differently. And I thought, and the way I did that was to think of some, sort of whatever popped into my mind was a recent thing that had happened in our family. And I went back to how I persevered through that. I felt like it was the end of the world at that time, but I got through it. So I went to in my reconceptualizing this uncertainty of what's going to happen with the COVID, I went back in my memory to a recent event that was a challenging event that I persevered. And I said to myself, you know what, Caroline, you persevered through that uncertainty and fear. I made the best of a bad situation. I actually admired myself for a moment. I actually admired myself for getting through and learning from it. And then I reminded myself of how uncomfortable I felt, but how when I actually, because hindsight, as we know, is always 20/20 vision. Okay. We always know, I should have done that. I should have done that. Okay. So I used the previous experience and I did some 20/20 vision hindsight, and I looked at the situation, what happened, how I reacted initially, how I got through, how through the tears, the freaking out in the love zone. You've heard me say that before. I'm not an ostrich. I'm not going to put my head in the sand, but I remembered how I was upset. I cried. I was traumatized by certain things. But then I remembered that we actually got through it. And I remembered how I handled it. And that changed. I could feel my physiology changing. I could feel, and that literally is happening in the research and the clinical trials that I'm currently analyzing that we did last year, over the period of last year, on the mind-brain connection, and using my app called Switch to help teach mind management, which incorporate some of these techniques that I'm telling you now. What we saw was then when you actually start acknowledging how you're feeling instead of pushing it down, the energy in your brain changes so that you get a calmer brain. So even though you feel like you're freaking out, you're actually freaking out. The freaking out is actually optimizing brain function. I mean, that sounds so crazy, but I'm talking about freaking out in a state of positive stress. I'm not talking about freaking out in a negative state, saying, this is terrible, I'm going down, we're never going to get out of it. I didn't get into a negative spiral. I acknowledged, and then I started going towards solving the problem. So it wasn't a negative spiral downwards. It was an acknowledgement, and then it was a progress forward versus just going on this hamster wheel or going into a negative toxic reaction. So basically that's very different, two different reactions. So by grabbing that toxic thought and managing how I processed it, it changed my physiological reactions. And we see that change in the brain. We see that when we, through your tears, through your whatever you're doing, to even the panic, the anxiety, the depression, there's a sense of, I can manage this, I can make this work for me. As soon as you start saying things like that I'm going to find a solution, I'm going to dive into this as hard as it is, I'm going to look for, imagine diving in murky water. That's the visual I use, is diving into murky water. You've dropped something that's very important to yourself at the bottom of some murky pool or dirty pool or something, and you're diving in and you're trying to find that thing that you've lost, which is your peace, okay, if you want an analogy. But you keep swimming through that, you know it's there. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. And that's where that piece, that important thing that's in the murky water, I drew on that by thinking of my past experience that had helped me, where I was so uncertain about the outcome, and I actually got through that. That was driving me to go through the murky water to find a solution to the current situation, that into how I felt in that moment. And when you do that, we see from the research in the brain that your brain physiology changes, that you get this, you get these waves of learning energy moving through your brain. They're called gamma waves, and they flow in the way that you can actually learn. You get what we call an increase in alpha energy in the brain that helps calm your brain down sufficiently that you can actually
actually dig into your memories and pull out the good stuff. It also then activates what we call beta energy in the brain. And that when beta energy is activated, you can actually go online and start processing through. And then when you get these patterns of all these different energies, your brain calms down sufficiently for you to think with clarity. So when I woke up and I started the panic and I started getting scared of the uncertainty, I had no clarity. I just saw negative. As I went through this process, my brain shifted and I started seeing clarity. I started seeing a way of moving forward. Okay, so what I was doing there was a level of accepting the uncertainty, expressing the uncertainty, realizing that I have to tolerate the uncertainty. I have to dive into the murky water of uncertainty. And the thing helping me dive in was drawing back on the past experience where I had got through something. It gave me the resilience and the energy to dive in and get through that. I then also, what happened was that calmed my brain down sufficiently so that I could think clearly enough. And even though I was still a little panicky, still feeling a little bit depressed about it and anxious, and all those things can happen at the same time. They're just simply emotional warning signals. I felt them receding and I felt suddenly my mood shifted. But guys, this was not something that just happened to me. I did it. I used my mind to change my mind. I use my mind to change my mental energy. These exact steps on how to do this, I have built into my app called Switch, which is on sale at the moment. So you can download that and you must learn how to use that technique. I use it every single day. I'm a scientist. Was a therapist for 25 years. I write books, all the things that I'm doing. Okay, I still use this every single day. It is a lifesaver, okay, to get to understand how to use your mind to control your mind. Okay, very, very important. So we need to calm our brain. So I've got a couple of tips before I go to the questions that I want to just give you to help you in dealing with uncertainty. But before, I just want to remind you that one of the things that we want uncertainty, when we're faced with uncertainty, we want an answer. We want a formula. What is the solution? What's the formula for success? As humans, you're always looking for that perfect formula. We look at other people that are successful and we look at other situations that are successful for that formula. You're not going to find that very easily. You're going to, without looking at yourself. Okay, so I found the formula for moving forward out of that uncertain moment. I found that formula by remembering an incident that happened very recently that was very traumatic, that was very uncertain, that I got through. Okay, so I found, in a sense, a formula that helped me to dive into the murky water of the moment. This has been, as a result of doing that, this has been one of the most innovative and creative weeks that I've had. Analyzing my clinical trials, which is an enormously complex job, working with clinical trials, working on a book, doing multiple interviews, podcasts. I work 15 hours a day at the moment doing all these things, but I've had a week of just pure innovation because I controlled it. And each time the uncertainty came back, I applied those same principles again. We also love to look at a guru or someone who's going to tell us the way, but you've got to, and that's what, look, I'm trying to help you. I'm not saying I'm a guru, but I do know something about the mind after 38 years. I hope I do. And being a mother of four and going through life, there's a certain amount of knowledge that I have and that I'm always learning. And I'm going to share that with you. But you have so much inside of you. When you look deep, you'll find that little golden ring or whatever it is that's in the murky water, and that'll draw you in. Because in that, through the pain, through every bit of pain, there is the little lesson to help pull you through. And then next time, whatever you're going through now, maybe what you go through today or what this experience I had this week, maybe next week or in a week's time or a few days' time or tomorrow, that will be the example that I'll use to help me deal with my next period of uncertainty. So they'll build on each other. Okay, so a couple of tips and things that we can do. I'm actually going to give you 11 different little super easy things to help you deal with uncertainty based on our discussion now. And the first thing is the overarching thing of the tips on dealing with uncertainty is how to get control, to feel that you're getting a level of control. Because one of the antidotes to uncertainty is to get a sense that I can control. When I dived into the murky water, going on my previous experience, I felt like I had a level of control, and that helped me. And then as I calmed down, I could see more control coming back. I could see I could feel the physiological reaction, and I could feel and see the mental reaction. That gave me a feeling of control. I gave myself evidence, clinical scientific evidence, that when I applied mind management, I was going to change my brain and body started responding. I got them under control. When your brain is firing, I call it a COVID brain. When it goes, it literally looks red on the QEEG. It literally fires up red. You have no calmness in your brain. You can't see the wood for the trees. You're going to be angry, frustrated, snapping, reacting, getting yourself in a hole, getting panicky, getting worse. But you can stop that. You are so powerful. And I believe in you. And listen, I've been doing this for long enough as a scientist to know that this is a reality, and I apply this in my own life. Okay, so what can you control and what can you do? You can control your reactions. Number one, you cannot control the events and circumstances, but you can control your reactions. That's great to know. You are in control of the next moment, of how you react to when we get off this webinar, and how you, maybe something happens in your home, or you read another piece of news, or whatever. You can control your reaction. And the first 30 to 60 to 90 seconds, so that window of 30 to 90 seconds is absolutely critical, because as you get new information, you have all kinds of levels of reaction. You get it first, funnily enough, your non-conscious level, which is the biggest part of you, is going to start already responding. Your conscious level, which is your awareness, is going to lag behind a little bit, but your brain is registering what's happening on the non-conscious mind. So your conscious awareness lags a little bit behind what your brain is doing, and what your non-conscious, which is the most intelligent part of you, is doing, and also what your body, how your blood chemistry, your hormones, your DNA, how that's starting to react. That's the kind of comes a little bit slower. It's like the third in terms of time. So when you control your reactions, you have what we call veto power. As you consciously are aware, like I was with that example, as I became consciously aware, I trained myself to be very aware of my reactions, to observe my reactions, to stand back and observe them. As I did that, I control my mind by being aware of what I'm thinking. So I've chosen to train myself to be aware of my reaction, which is what I did when this happened a few days ago. So first of all, I was watching myself with my thinking. I saw that I didn't just allow it to go away. I didn't just do the suppression thing. I didn't just say this is all going to go away, or hide in my work, or say it's all God's plan, or it's a big part of the whole scheme of things. This is a horrible virus it's dangerous, and we don't know what it's going to do. And we're already seeing it's doing tremendous damage for the whole world to be globally affected by this common enemy. This is significant, okay? So I could control my reaction to that. So, because if my reaction's not controlled, all that other stuff goes wrong, and I'm not going to make good decisions. We need intelligence in this time. We need good decisions. We need to make the right decisions for ourselves, for our families, for the world. We need to not just think, oh, I don't care, and not self-isolate. We need to follow these rules that the CDC and the WHO are telling us. We need to self-isolate. We need to wash our hands. We need to be careful how we bring groceries into our house. We need to wear those face masks. These are things that we can control. Okay, our reactions, plus making the decision to do these very practical things. Okay, so you can also control your day. You can control the routine of your day. You could, if you're bad with your routine, so that's okay. Give yourself a little bit of grace, because it is pretty tough, but write it out then, set it up, put it on your phone. There's so many ways that you can work out a routine, and be realistic with your routine, and be flexible within your routine. Have a possibilities mindset when it comes to routines, because you can plan the perfect routine for the day, but then something happens and maybe you don't exercise at that time. All this happens, but it's okay. If you can't exercise for 5 hours or 3 hours or 1 hour, 5 minutes is better than nothing. I was so busy yesterday, I couldn't do my normal workout. I only had time for like literally 10-minute ab workout. So I did that, but I don't beat myself up about that, because I had a lot of other things that occurred in the day. But I have a routine that I try as best to stick to, which is very good. That's order. Some you can control, but you need flexibility within the routine, which you can also control. You can control how flexible you are. You can control your possibilities. You can have a possibilities mindset. So this is my plan, but things might go wrong. So that's okay. I'll adjust my plan. I talk about that in my book, Think, Learn, Succeed. And in the Switch app, I talk about how to bring a possibilities mindset into your lifestyle. Okay, so we've already spoken in routine. I mentioned exercise. Very important that you do exercise. Not only is it good for, it's so much. I mean, it's so good for your brain. We know all the basic things, but one of the things that maybe you didn't know about exercise is that it does release a chemical reaction that helps to reduce depression and anxiety. So, and also increase clarity of mind. So besides all the detoxing and the necessary movement that your body requires, etc., it is also helping to calm down your mind. So that's a very important part of exercise, and it's just a great routine, and you're going to feel great. And try and vary it up a little bit, maybe go for a walk or go for a run. Or I mean, we've turned our dining room into a little gym, because we all love Orange Theory, so now we call it Leaf Theory. And in fact, we'll be doing a little thing in our Leaf Theory gym on Saturday morning. We'll be doing an Instagram live with a special guest, so don't forget to tune into that. And also sometimes we do, because we like to do sprints. So we'll go outside the front door, and I think our neighbors think we're crazy. We don't ever see our neighbors, but I think we're the entertainment. We become the TV, because here we are sprinting up and down the road. Now I have 4 kids. 2 of them are in isolation with us, but they are my 2 daughters. They are super fit. And here I start off like running with them super fast, and then suddenly you can see me lagging behind. So it's quite funny. I have to try and keep up with these girls. But so that you can control, do your exercise. As I mentioned already, follow CDC guidelines and WHO guidelines. Take this seriously. Go watch my Instagram live I did this morning with Dr. Will Bilshevitz, where he is an epidemiologist, and he explains the importance of why we need to do the face mask, why you need to wear gloves, how to do, wash your groceries, all kinds of stuff. So we need to do that. This is serious. We've got to flatten this curve. We've got to be responsible. That you can do. You can control that. And if we all do that, we are all together reducing the uncertainty. One thing that is certain in the uncertainty is when we follow these guidelines, we will flatten the curve. Now, I know that it's kind of confusing and I'm just going to say this because we flatten the curve, but then we suddenly get these, the mortality rate seems to be increasing. So what happens is as we isolate, we flatten the curve in terms of the number of people admitted to hospital, but then the mortality rate lags a little bit behind. So that can happen. Okay, so don't be thrown by that. Just know that when you follow CDC guidelines, it is really, really working. Okay, so control triggers. Look at the triggers in your life. What are the things that make you feel the uncertainty worse than others? So take a day, like maybe even all this evening or tomorrow, and get your phone out or a diary or something, and look at the triggers that throw you, whether it is maybe a conversation with someone, whether it's maybe a particular type of news article. Look for the triggers that seem to accelerate or exacerbate your uncertainty. List those down, and then what you can do with those triggers is, once you're aware of them, then you can look out for them and you can control the triggers. And so you can reduce the amount of toxic stress you put your body into. When your body goes into toxic stress, 1,400 neurophysiological responses will work against you instead of for you. Okay, limit your news access. Please limit your news access. Okay, I keep saying this all over the place, and everyone's telling you the same thing, so it's not something new. But really, if you merge with your environment, okay, your brain merges with what your mind chooses to focus on. Quantum physics, the quantum Zeno effect in quantum physics is the repeated effort makes learning take place. If you repeatedly read the news every time it flashes up on your screen, and you're sitting there just reading the news, you are merging with that environment. You are merging and building whatever you read into your brain and reinforcing. And because it's all toxic, it's all scary, it's stuff you don't understand, it's going to make you feel worse. So be very organized in how you control your news viewing. Choose really good outlets. Make sure that you incorporate something like the CDC or WHO to get good, accurate news, medical news. We also put up information on our sites. There's a lot of good, reliable sources where you can get good information. Dr. Will Bilshevitz is also the epidemiologist. He's put a blog on our page. He updates the blog constantly on his page as well. So there's many great sources, medical news today. So select something that's very sciencey, one or two, I'd recommend at least two, and then select a couple of news outlets and maybe vary those across the week. So you're not always reading from the same angle. So if you read the New York Times today and the Daily or the whatever, the Washington Post, maybe tomorrow swap that out and do two other sources or something like that. Also limit your access. I generally recommend 4 blocks a day, and limit your block to 15 minutes or so that you're spending a total of an hour a day, something like that on the news. Work out a plan, but keep it very limited. Then, big thing, balance this with positive stuff. So if you've read 4 negative things, balance it with positive stuff. So look for the good things that are coming out of this, the great connections, the community, there's always something good that you can also find to read, and really focus on that and talk about that to your family so that you shift and merge with the positive and that you get more balance. Your brain, your body, your mind all want to have balance. They're all merging towards balance. Uncertainty creates imbalance. So you embrace the uncertainty to get the balance back. You can't make the balance come back by pushing things away or suppressing it or pretending it doesn't exist. The balance comes back when you face the uncertainty and you get through it and push through it, then that brings the balance back. Okay, so if we read toxic news, that can bring unbalance. When we read and you limit it and bring good news, we can bring some balance back. So be aware, but balance it. Okay, a couple of other things. If you've got negative people, try and avoid them. I know it's difficult if you're stuck at home with them, but you can put boundaries up. You can limit the time you spend with them. You can also do things like imagine that they're in a box. Okay, this is a really good thing. You might have heard me teach this before, the box method. So if someone's really bugging you and they're really negative and they're just crossing boundaries and you are living in the same space, smile sweetly. Remember you love them, it's a family member, and imagine they're in a box when they're having one of their little moods, and that box is sealed, and so you've actually now got them small in a box, even though they're right there in front of you, and protect yourself like that. And you kind of, that creates this like literally creates an energy field around you, because you're generating energy fields all the time. It's not something weird. You're generating electromagnetic energy all the time. But when you choose to operate in love and distance yourself from the situation that could be triggering you, you actually create a very strong love wave that protects you, and perfect love casts out fear. Okay, so this is a great technique to do. Okay, have fun. It's so important to have fun. Are you laughing? Are you doing fun things? Are you doing silly things? Are you playing games? Are you looking at these memes? There are the most phenomenally funny memes out there. I mean, the humor inside of us is so important. It's when you laugh, it's called internal jogging, and it literally does. It activates your neuroendocrine system to rebalance this balance thing I keep talking about. And when your neuroendocrine system, which is totally connected to your brain, totally connected to your immune system, connected to your gut, everything is connected. When one thing starts coming into alignment, it affects the rest of your body. We see great patterns happening in the brain with the energy waves when you are in humor, in a state of humor, laughing, etc. It releases built up toxic energy. It actually breaks cycles of tension in the brain, and tension looks literally like a red brain. I mean, I'm going to show you an image now. This is from my clinical trials, and it's still being analyzed, so I'm going to show you on my computer. So this is all going to you're going to get lots of information on my website about this soon. But what I'm going to show you is it's called a head map from a QEEG. And if you look at the top row, you'll see it. I'm peeking around the corner of my computer. This looks so weird. You'll see a row of blue brains, and those blue brains basically are a person who's extremely depressed, extremely flat, not sleeping, really battling with relationships, with life, etc. And then you'll see down the side it says 21 days and 63 days. This person we put through my Switch app as their mind management plan, incorporating a lot of the stuff I've been telling you now, but the actual mind management plan that I've researched for nearly 38 years now and put into this app called Switch. They used that within 21 days. Their brain had literally gone to what we would call gone to the gray. We want it more balanced. So where you see gray in the second row with a little bit of green, that is showing a brain that is becoming more balanced, a calmer mind, one that can think rationally. And then you'll see at day 63, which is 9 weeks later, it's even better and it's sustained. So what I'm telling you there, what my clinical trials are showing, is that when we manage our mind, and all these things I'm telling you is mind management, you are going to change how your brain functions. Now, when you get those kind of good, when you get the blue away and you get that gray and a little bit of that light green, you are going to improve your immune system. And we want our immune system boosted. We want all the incredible way that our immune system works to be activated to protect us in this time. And when you laugh, guys, you are getting that gray in your brain. You're getting that, you'll get that gray across your brain, across the different frequencies, and that the green part in the front part of the brain, the light green, and that's great. That means that you've just given this like major boost to your immune system. So that's a really fun thing you can do. And so there's many ways you can have fun. Play games, have game nights, plan the week. Wednesday night's going to be game night. So whatever, and make sure that you enjoy each other, laugh, get those, yawn. When you yawn and you look at each other, it's very catchy. And when you yawn, it makes we all look so crazy. It's a great way to make people laugh. So when you're all copying each other, yawning, it can get you laughing, get you in a good mood, and also it reboots your brain and can help you refocus and that kind of thing. So there's so many cute things that you can do to have a lot of fun. Last thing I'm going to tell you is called a dosing practice. Okay, this is a great thing to do as well. And that is to train yourself to get used to uncertainty, to train yourself in this mind management thing. And so what you do is select something that makes you uncomfortable with the uncertainty, something that's uncertain, and there's plenty to choose from at the moment. So take one thing, limit this exercise to a maximum of 7 minutes. So put your timer on, choose your little thing, write it down, and then write it down and describe it as clearly as you can, and then out loud start talking about that and reflecting on it, but limit the time. And when 7 minutes is up, stop. And then what you can do is the next day you can maybe do it. You could even start at 3 minutes and then 4 minutes and then 5 minutes and then 6 minutes. So you're increasing the dose like you would increase dose of a medication or a treatment. So you increase dosing. So you're getting yourself used to dealing with uncertainty. And then in that dosing, not only are you acknowledging that the little thing that you are thinking, the uncertain thing, but also do dosing in terms of practicing the good stuff. So like I said right in the beginning, that I woke up a few days ago with that negative thing that I was very uncertain about the future and whatever, all the thing I described. And then I remembered a previous recent traumatic event that had uncertain outcomes and how I use that to remind myself that I actually got through this. So do that as well. Start adding to your dosing, add a little treatment. And the treatment is, okay, this is what I'm uncertain about. Explore the feelings, limit the time, and then end off the exercise with a little reminder of something that you did get through. So there's lots of stuff. Now I want to get to the questions, and there are so many questions. Okay. So, I'm working 12 hours a day in the airport, giving mental health advice and directions. How can I handle my emotions and body daily? What an excellent question. First of all, thank you for what you're doing. All those mental health workers, all the doctors, all the grocery workers, all the people that are out there making our lives easier. The Amazon, the people, I acknowledge you. We all do. We all hold our hands up to you and say thank you so much for that. So when you're in those situations, it's so important to maybe at all these things that I've been saying, you can apply absolutely everything, but immediately on the spot is to do what I did on Monday. I think I don't know which day it was. I think it was Monday. It was Monday morning when I had that little experience. The first thing I did is that I trained myself to stand back and observe my own thinking. So kind of imagine yourself watching yourself react. Okay. So watching how you are reacting in the moment. So as you are in that airport, watch your reactions. If you feel yourself getting negative, toxic, uncertain, fearful, remember that's going to affect your brain. I'm going to give you a picture actually very quickly. Let me quickly bring up a picture of what I call a COVID brain. It's not a COVID brain per se. I just labeled it that. It's a brain of someone who's extremely anxious and worked up and out of control. Okay, I'm going to hold this back up to the screen again. And if you look at the very, very red brain, the brain that's literally all red, We don't want that, okay? And you can control that. But if you're feeling very anxious and stuff, that's what your brain will look like, and that's going to have all that negative downplay through your downstream through your body. So we don't want you to do that. So by standing back and observing your own thinking, just by doing that, you already reduce that red in the brain, which often can then swing to that blue where you can feel very depressed. And then to immediately go and think of where you did get through a toxic event, like I explained. That'll also help boost your immune system and all the things I've just explained. So those are two things that you can do immediately. Plus, re-listen to this webinar and all the different tips that I've explained. Do that as well. And another thing is try and if you have time in between, look for funny memes on your phone and like a little. There's so many different places you can find it now, and then look at those, because as you go into a state of humor, you can build your resilience. If people are rude to you, put them in a box, okay? In your mentally, put them in a box, keep smiling, don't absorb their negativity. Remember, it's coming from a place of fear. Okay, let's have a look at another one. How do you incorporate grief in the mixture of this unknown circumstance? I have close friends who have lost members of their family in the midst of this, and I have been grieving with them. I mean, it's trauma. Pretty much that is trauma, because it's a grief that was completely unexpected. Grief is a process, and what we have to do is embrace it. We have to go through that grief. We can't push it away. So the tears, the all that stuff that comes, the crying, that feeling of loss where you feel like your heart is breaking, it is important to experience that. So those of you that have directly lost a loved one, my heart goes out to you. It's heartbreaking. You need to embrace that and try and talk about it as much as you can. And then what you need to do is, in those moments where you feel the grief is overwhelming, so talk about it, how you feel, but then immediately, this is just to balance. Remember that balance principle. Your brain, to help you to control your to help you to cope, just to cope with the next moment of the day, is we have to try and bring balance back into our brain again. So it's important that we express that. Hugging, physical touch, I know we can't do that with, unless if your members, the people around you aren't infected, then you can hug. Otherwise we have to air hug, etc. But that physical contact and communication is extremely important. And then we need to balance it with, remember, a good memory. If it's a photograph of a funny incident, or a story of a funny incident, or if anyone can, if you are, or a loved one are grieving at the moment, and you as a friend or the other a family member, whatever, if you remember a funny story about that person, or have a great photo or a great little anecdote, write that up, text it, email it, phone it through, so that you can try to balance the pain with something that is a little bit, that's happy. And it's very hard to do, because that can make you cry more, but that's okay, because you need to get it out. And I know it feels like it won't pass. I know your hearts are broken. Just the thought of losing a family member. I mean, I lost my dad a few years ago, and it broke my heart. Just the thought of anyone in my family dying, how do you deal with it? I don't have the answers. All I know is that I sympathize with you, and the empathy of each other, we can make each other stronger, and you can try and balance that that terrible trauma memory that needs to be acknowledged with something that's positive. What advice do you have, Dr. Lee, for those living alone? We don't have family to play games with. I'm not a fan of social media, so I limit my internet and TV access. Any thoughts of how to have fun for individuals that does not include technology? Maybe you can play. That's such a great question, because that's a lot of people that are on their own at the moment. I agree in limiting technology, but in this day and age, that is our connection. So maybe find some sites or podcasts or TV shows that make you happy, even if you want to limit it, but find stuff, what you do watch, make sure it's not just negative. So don't just watch negative news or depressing movies. Try and make, if you're limiting your technology, try to make sure that it's stuff that's going to make you happy and laugh and smile. And like, I wouldn't recommend watching Contagion or I Am Legend and those kind of movies now. Rather watch something that'll make you happy. That's something you can do. Then there's lots of games that you can play on your own. You can also, like solitaire, you can play card games and that kind of thing. Read a funny book. Read a book. that will make you laugh, or that'll make you feel that warmth of connection. Read a favorite book, maybe a book that you read years ago and you just know it was something that made you happy. That's something that you could also do. And make sure that you've got a good routine, and just make sure that you and phone people. If you don't want to go into technology, make sure that at least once a day that there's someone that you can actually phone and talk to and that you can connect with. Okay. What did let's see the next. My boyfriend was just let go and fired from his job during this difficult time for no reason, and I'm having trouble handling this. How can I help and deal with it? We don't have the answers. And when you love someone, I know this feeling. I've got 4 kids, I've got a husband, I've got friends, I've got family. You want to help them. You want to fix it. As a mom, this is such a big thing. Moms out there can relate. And you want to fix it for them. Anyone that you love, you don't want to see them in pain. But we can't fix it for them. What we can do is reach out, touch their hand, however, if they're not infected, obviously, and say that I don't understand this. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know, even have answers for you, but I'm with you. And together we will get through this. As soon as you know that you're not alone, and look in the person's eyes, don't do it distracted. Be absolutely immersed. Like I'm looking at you now, like you can see the whites of my eyes. You need to connect with that person. I'll say this to all of you. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know we will get through this together. Together, as humanity, we will get through this. I'm hearing a lot of conspiracy theories. I don't know what to believe anymore. Any advice? Great question. We addressed this morning on my talk, my Instagram live with Dr. Will Bolshevitz as well, Dr. Will B. And there are lots of conspiracy theories out there. That's why I say please stick to the CDC, the WHO, medical news. Stick to the more scientific ones and news outlets that you trust. And if you see a conspiracy theory, I mean, you read a conspiracy theory or someone sending you a text, I mean, I'm sure you're getting them. I've been getting them some ridiculous nonsense, like even people posting on our social media. We just delete those. We don't read those. If it's not confirmed by multiple sources, and it's not been spoken about by the scientific, I would always look at the scientific authorities first. And the reason I say that is because the scientists are working together like I have never seen scientists work before. There is so much incredible positive interaction. They're the big people in the house at the moment. Honestly, they're the adults in the house at the moment. The scientists are not trying to chase self-gain, publication, etc. They are crossing boundaries, they're crossing cultures, they're crossing belief systems, and they are sharing and pooling data and working together. So I would track the scientific literature as much as possible on COVID. Okay, any recommendations for helping children deal with the anxiety and uncertainty, since they are often unable to verbalize or conceptualize the reasons for their feelings? Mine are 7 and 9 years old and home from school for the rest of the school year. Yeah, I know that's like a super challenging one. We did do a podcast just recently. You can go and look at my podcast. I spoke about tips for helping children at home. But essentially, your vulnerability as a mom and as a dad is extremely important here. It's kind of like that the thing I said about the scientists now. What you can tell them is that we don't know what's going to happen. This is something that is scary, and that's why we're staying at home, because we don't understand it. And you could maybe just draw a little picture of the virus. I mean, it's all over the place. They've probably seen it, the little ball with the little spikes in it, and just say the scientists are looking for ways of killing those little spines, because those and neutralizing those little spines, zapping them. I mean, use maybe an analogy from Star Wars. They're looking for something to zap those little spines. So the scientists are working hard together. The adults are working really hard together to solve this problem. But once again, we are here together. I'm with you. You're not alone. But be vulnerable. Don't say, oh, it's all going to be fine and it's nothing to worry about. It is something to worry about. You need to, it's very important that you acknowledge how they're feeling. So it's very important that if they're not very verbal yet, and obviously the younger they are, the more difficult it is to explain. So you're going to see anger, you're going to see frustration, you're going to have tantrums, you're going to have, why can't I see my friend? You're going to have all kinds of things like that. Have a space in your house where they can express their anger. And that could be, I've said this before, an anger wall or an anger space. and maybe even a COVID. I also talk about a COVID space where you talk about COVID. So if you space it, so maybe you talk only about COVID and explain it to them what's happening on it. Keep them updated. Don't keep them in the dark. So we start, whatever. Adapt the language, very simple for them, not too much information. You don't have to say a lot, just a couple of things, but only talk about it in that space. So if that helps them process the fact that, okay, I'm feeling like this is so strange, that they don't feel that all over the place, that they can actually go to that space in your house. And when they go there, say, Mom, can you please help me? I'm teach them that when you go there, then I know you want to talk to me about what's going on at the moment and you want some help. And sometimes you're not going to have an answer. Be vulnerable and just say, I'm also scared, but we'll be scared together. We'll do it. I tell you, they will react by saying, Mommy, don't worry, I'll look after you, etc., etc. What you can put into that COVID space is maybe if it's close by, if you can't do it there, is have a little angle wall where you can get a bunch of soft toys, and they can then pick up their frustration at not being able to see their friends. They can pick those up and throw them against the wall, or maybe fill balloons with water, and it could be a little activity. And obviously that would be done outside in a place where it's appropriate, and throw that against the wall. And there's a very tremendous satisfaction about throwing a balloon filled with water at a wall and it splatters everywhere. And that's just end up being a tremendous fun energy booster. Energy doesn't just disappear. Energy gets transferred. So if that energy of anxiety is not dealt with, if they don't have a space to speak about it or a way of expressing it, it'll go inside of them. So these are just a couple of little things that you can do that can help you. Okay, another excellent question from Shamika Williams. How do you deal with uncontrollable racing thoughts? Okay, I'm going to show you that red brain again. Have a look at this picture over here where you see in the bottom corner where I'm pointing now to the red brain. Okay, so this is a QEEG. It looks at the energy in the brain in response to what you're thinking, feeling, and choosing in any one moment. And when we have racing, uncontrollable hamster wheel thoughts that are just like, we are going to get that kind of activity in the brain. And it's a lot of what we call high beta. Everything's high. It's like a big waterfall in your brain instead of a wave. Our brain likes waves, okay? Different speeds of waves, but our brain likes waves. It doesn't like waterfalls. So that's what it's doing in the brain. And then it affects the body and the immune system and everything. So the way you do that is to use what I call the multiple perspective advantage, MPA. I talk about this in my Switch app, and I walk you through this technique in my Switch app as well. But basically, you're going to train yourself to stand back and observe your own thinking. I've already spoken about this in this webinar, and that is, you can do it now, right now, as you are listening to me. Watch yourself listening to me as you're sitting here now. What are you doing with your hands? I can see my hands. I'm aware of my okay, I'm seeing myself, so I can see my facial expressions. I'm listening to my voice tone. I'm listening to if I'm speaking too fast, because I tend to speak too fast when I get totally into a subject, so I try and slow down. So I'm monitoring myself. I'm self-regulating. We have got so busy in this busy life we live that we've forgotten how to do an MPA, how to self-regulate. This is a great opportunity, all of you, to train yourself to self-regulate again, to stand back and observe your own thinking, feeling, and choosing, your impact on yourself. Get in touch with your physical and emotional warning signals. Get in touch with your impact on other people. How are they responding to you? Are you noticing the impact of your words, your tone, your body language? Your body language is 50% of communication. So the first key to controlling uncontrollable thoughts, because you can control them, that's the good news, is you have to train yourself to observe them. And then you can it's always good to bring the physical in with the mental. So then you can imagine them as a toxic tree. And that's what I always use in my teachings is I've got this little black wiry tree, and imagine a wiry tree, because thoughts look like trees. And so this uncontrollable thought is this black wiry tree. So imagine that, and now grab it. Literally put it out of you, push it away from you, and then start analyzing and saying, okay, you toxic thought. And you can even give it a name, because maybe it's a concept that's a process, something you're going through. Give it a name and say you whatever, and give it some funny name to sort of, which kind of tones down the emotional impact of it. And then you can slowly go through the process of deconstructing it. As soon as we are consciously aware, it weakens the hold on you. It weakens the physical branches. So structurally, there's a change in the brain. The thought becomes weakened as soon as, and then mentally also you get stronger. So the stronger mind and the weakened physical work together to start redesigning and reconceptualizing the thought. So the exact steps for how to do that are in my Switch app, but that's the basic process. Okay, so what do you recommend for people that are married or living with a first responder? Well, once again, I just want to honor the first responder. I want to honor you living with a first responder. Until we in that, none of us can relate to that. I have lots of friends that are in the situation, and they've spoken to me about what it feels like, and it's traumatic. So in terms of what do you recommend is you're going to have to build up resilience in yourself so that you can be strong for your husband or wife, whoever's the first responder. And so everything I've said so far in this webinar is going to apply. But all of the things I've said, that's right the way through, from the capturing of the thought, the bringing in humor, all these things, every single thing that I've said today is going to facilitate the process of helping you to cope in that situation. So probably the first and most immediate thing is to use that multiple perspective advantage. So to observe how you are reacting so that you can control your reactions. Never deny, always acknowledge, and then get your brain calm so that you can work out solutions for how to move forward through that. Get the thought out of your head, do that externalizing thing I just explained. You can also, all the little techniques that I've been mentioning can help you. In this, our new norm, how do we not watch the news trying to get update news and controlling your anxiety towards what you hear? Great question once again. Come in very objectively to the news. So when you read the news, before you do, prepare yourself, okay? The first 30 to 60, I said it already earlier on, the first 30 to 60 to 90 seconds that you hear information, you get a flood of chemicals through your brain and your body. And by the way, this question is also good. This answer that I'm giving now is also good for the previous two answers to add to that. As you get that first reaction, that is when you really need to put that multiple perspective advantage into play. You mustn't just react. The first flood of chemicals is kind of preparing your body for the right response. It tends to be kind of chaotic. So there's no filter yet. So it's a flood of chemicals. It's a response, but it's an unfiltered, disorganized response. After around about 60 to 90 seconds, more or less, it starts getting more organized. So that gives us a chance to kind of get some order and then to start calming down our brain enough to get a more clear response. Okay, so just that question again, I just want to make sure I answer the whole thing. We're just finding the question again. Okay. How do we not watch the news? Okay, so you multiple perspective advantage. Remember the first 30 to 90 seconds. So okay, I'm going to read the news. I know already, just like I say the news, you can feel the reaction. Okay, so be aware of that. Say, okay, now calm down. I'm just getting information. Speak to yourself like speaking to a child or speaking to another person. Prepare yourself. So mentally prepare. I'm going to read the news. No matter what comes out, these are the facts of the moment. I need to know these facts. So be very logical and clear as though you're talking to yourself. So acknowledge that anxiety that's coming up. Take it out. There's the tree. Speak to it and say, I know I'm getting news, but this news I need. So instead of it being toxic, see it as a green tree. I'm going to add more information that's going to help me understand this more, reduce the uncertainty, whatever you need to do, but you're going to build another network. So if you practice every time that you're going to read the news and this one wants to pop up, that makes you feel more anxious. You know, I don't want that one. I want this one. And then as you use it more and more, this eventually loses all of its energy and goes away. And this one becomes the dominant one. And then this is what you can add new information on. So therefore, you see this as information that does require an emotional response, but it's a more controlled emotional response that's not making you feel like you can't cope. Okay. What uplifting movie would you recommend? Why don't you like Shrek or Let's Move It, Move It? What's that one? I'm asking my Madagascar went blank for a moment. I mean, those things, cartoons, watch, like, there's so many great movies out there that make you laugh. I love Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, ages me, but I love that kind of thing. We've been watching that dating experiment. I don't know what it's called. Let me ask my. Okay, so anyway, fine. I don't know what to tell you exactly, but those are the kind of movies that I watch that I love, that make me laugh. My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I mean, I don't know how many times I've watched that, but that one always manages to make me feel happy. So maybe go back on some of the old ones, but cartoons are great for that. Okay, so this is okay. Me and my wife are on the mission field and are getting less support now than before because people are afraid to give during this time. How can we deal with the extra stress of this on top of being quarantined? Well, my sympathies go out to you. This is very difficult. But this is a global thing. Everyone everywhere is really battling financially, and it's very, very difficult. The stress of that. I think that honestly, the best response I have is that we need to realize that we are all in this together, which we do. But the stress of managing that, the stress, if it gets toxic, stress is good for us if we perceive it as being good for us. If you think, oh my gosh, this is terrible, okay, here's the difference. It is terrible if the financial crisis is terrible. The COVID is terrible. We acknowledge that. But I'm going to stay in positive stress so that all the energy in all my physiological responses, my blood flow in my heart, blood flow going to my brain are going to stay like they should so that I can think more clearly. If I say this is terrible, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. I can't do this. That will put that instead of the stress working for you, it now will work against you. So the difference is that we acknowledge the situation, but we don't deny it, but we don't go down a rabbit hole of all the negative. We become very analytical, and we always make sure that we're taking one step forward as opposed to just going on that hamster wheel of uncontrolled thoughts and allowing us to get more and more and more and more depressed. That takes away clarity of thought, and you will not be innovative. You see, when we get into the state where we're so challenged with uncertainty, that's when innovation is, if we handle uncertainty correctly, that's when our brilliance and our innovative side comes out of us. I know it's a hard way. It comes out in other ways too, but that is one of at least there's a silver lining to uncertainty in that brilliance and innovation will come out. So so for all those who registered, you'll receive this recording. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has pretty much come to the end of this webinar. So for all of those that registered, you're going to get this recording to watch again. You'll get it in an email, and send us your comments and your feedback, and if you'd like to do this again. And thank you so much for taking the time out. And I reach out an air hug to all of you. Big kisses and hugs and lots of strength and love during this very difficult time. To quote my friend Dr. Will Bolshevitz, this is the first time in humanity that we are collectively united against one common enemy. Collectively united. Let's focus on that, and let's keep supporting each other like we are. Thank you for joining me today. God bless everyone. Thank you.